Our call to worship can be found on the first page of your bulletin. Before there was a temple, King David imagined a house of God in Jerusalem where Israelites of all tribes could gather in peace. We rejoice with those who say, "Let us go into the house of the Lord. Our feet are standing in your gates, O Jerusalem." Before Jerusalem was finished being built, King David imagined the community of diverse tribes ascending to its heights, side by side in joy and peace. Jerusalem is built like a city that is closely compacted together. That is where the tribes go up to praise the name of the Lord according to the statute given to Israel. Weary from war, David knew that peace and prosperity for his people depended on the prosperity and peace for and within all people. Together we pray for peace in our hearts, our families, our communities, Jerusalem, Palestine, and the entire world. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace within your walls and security within your citadels. For the sake of my family and friends, I will say, peace be with you. For the sake of the house of the Lord God, I will seek your prosperity. And may we seek each other's prosperity as we begin our time of worship and this new academic year.
A First Nations prayer for the sacred warrior. Life offers us the opportunity to become a sacred warrior. A warrior is one who bravely goes into those dark areas within themselves to ferret out the truth of their being. It takes courage, stamina, and endurance to become a sacred warrior. The path is narrow, the terrain rough and rocky. You will walk alone through the dark caves, up those steep climbs and through the dense, thick forest. You will meet your dark side. The faces of fear, deceit, and sadness all await your arrival. No one can take this journey but you. There comes a time in each of our lives when we are given the choice to follow this path. Should we decide to embark on this journey, we can never turn back. Our lives are changed forever. On this journey, there are many different places we can choose to slip into and hide. But the path goes on. The sacred warrior stays the course, wounded at times, exhausted and out of energy. Many times, the warrior will struggle back to their feet to only take a few steps before falling again. Rested, they forge on, continuing the treacherous path. The journey continues. The sacred warrior stays the course, weakened but never broken. One day, the battle, loneliness, and desperate fights are over. The sun breaks through the clouds. The birds begin to sing their sweet melodies. There is a change in the energy, a deep change within the self. The warrior has fought the courageous fight. The battle of the dark night of the soul is won. New energy now fills the warrior. A new path is laid before them, a gentler path filled with the inner knowing of one who has personal empowerment. With their personal battle won, they are filled with joy. A new awareness that they are one with the Great Spirit beams as they go forth to show others the way. They are not permitted to walk the path for others. They can only love, guide, and be a living example of the truth of their being.
Good morning. Good morning. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Board of Trustees, some of whom are here with us this morning and who met all morning to think about the future and the present of this place. So we welcome all of you as students and faculty and staff and supporters mindful that there are too many who love and support United Theological Seminary scattered across this country and indeed beyond. So welcome to all of you. We know that this year, unlike any year in recent history, is a year of great change and of great possibility. So we invite it with enthusiasm and gratitude. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to the Fall Convocation of United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. We are glad that you are all here. This is a very important time in the history of United as we welcome new and returning students to United, welcome Dr. Oz Freeman to the faculty, and as we prepare to start a new chapter in the United story. As with any good story, this new chapter will rely on elements of the past and seek to bridge to yet unwritten chapters of our future. I remember walking to school at the beginning of first grade. The school was about a half mile from our home, and my mother walked alongside, pushing my baby brother in the stroller. What I remember is the excitement about my bonanza-imaged lunchbox, a briefcase with a notebook and a pencil holder that had my name on it. I remember the feel of fall and the smells of school with fresh school supplies and tomato soup cooking for lunch. As an adult, I also remember the challenges that I was about to have with a lisp that impaired my speech, Johnny Dixon who was going to bully me, difficulties in my parents' marriage, and my mother's deep depression. But the recall of the excitement about the start of school is a happy place, one that brings a comforting smile to my face. I'm not in denial about the challenges of the year and the scars that it left, but I can also still remember the joy of that walk to school. Some might say that the complexity of holding those distinct and somewhat disparate aspects of my experience of first grade together is the beginning of learning to tolerate ambivalence and ambiguity in life. Truly experiencing the good and challenging aspects of life as both true at the same time, neither valid nor in need of discount. Being ambivalent and tolerating ambiguity in our times is not in favor, and in many cases for some very valid reasons. It is difficult at times to separate the acts and behaviors from the nature of the context. It is easy to be joyful about my walk to first grade that occurred in the midst of difficult events, but it is harder to be ambivalent in my feelings about Johnny Dixon, my tormentor. At the same time, there is a vital aspect of the recognition of ambivalence and the tolerance of ambiguity. There are those who are more comfortable in an ambiguous context. Successful entrepreneurs often exhibit an extreme tolerance for risk and unknown while maintaining a focus and a passion. At the other end of the continuum, there are those with extreme anxiety who have virtually no tolerance of risk or uncertainty. If I had to pick a word or expression that most defined United for me, it is tolerance of ambiguity. In a recent meeting with a foundation grant officer who was interviewing us prior to hopefully funding our grant request, she said, we do not usually fund organizations that proselytize. She seemed comforted by our lack of a defined statement of faith or creed or requirement that anyone, student, faculty, or staff, have a particular set of beliefs. United understands that for many, Tolerance of ambiguity and ambivalence are essential qualities of welcoming and exploration of faith. The tolerance of non-certainty extends beyond theological perspectives at United. We were founded as an ecumenical seminary, nurturing and celebrating a wide array of historical traditions. We have rejected enticements to embed within larger universities or institutions that might work to more tightly define our beliefs or perspectives. We have watched as student numbers in progressive seminaries, including United, have dramatically shrunk through the last decade, and yet we have stayed focused and passionate about finding a path to support the vibrancy of the educational experience at United. Tolerance of non-certainty does not imply passivity. Successful entrepreneurs are far from passive. They may not know definitively where things are going, but they actively work to move forward and respond to new learnings and obstacles. In a faith context, habitual practices can be a complex concept. Habitual practices often help us tolerate ambiguity. We do not know much about what the future brings, but we know that we will sing carols on Christmas Eve. Loss of practices can be unsettling. Recently, a new pastor changed the order of our liturgy at church. The sermon now comes after the offertory. Can you believe it? None of us are immune from the discomfort of evolving practices. But frankly, reading about certain practices in the Older and Newer Testaments makes me grateful that some have been abandoned. The expressions and experiences of faith practices in our culture and world are evolving. For some, too rapidly, for others, too slowly. Our individual and collective tolerance of ambivalence about the changes and the ambiguity about the future will greatly impact our experience of these changes. But only marginally will they impact the result. The changes are bigger than our individual preferences and more consistent with a theistic intention. In our role as educators and those who support graduate students in their preparation for a path of faith leadership, we have a responsibility to ensure that the experiences that we provide generate the skills, insights, and resilience needed to be effective in your present and future leadership roles. Despite the clouds of ambiguity about the future of faith communities, it seems clear that less will center on large buildings with steeples and stained glass. More will require leaders who can bridge between the everyday experiences of people and historical contexts and texts in a manner that is perceived as relevant and useful. More will require leaders who can lead from within the community rather than from raised pulpits with sage voices. Leaders will require strong interpersonal skills with egos that can tolerate conflict and ambiguity. More will require the tolerance of abandoned practices and books of order replaced by deeper skills at meeting the spiritual and emotional needs of people. At United, we are continuously seeking to question why we do what we do and why things are happening. Why would we stay in a 65,000 square foot structure on a multi-acre campus that is hard to get to and difficult from which to engage with others in the broader community? Why do we not focus more of the curriculum on the skills needed to successfully lead today's communities of faith? Why do more than 25% of seminarians admitted not complete their target degree programs across all ATS seminaries in the U.S.? Why are depression and other life challenges higher amongst faith leaders than in the general populace? Why are seminary programs of which we are all proud not attractive to more potential students? Why are seminary graduates not more successful in their community leadership? And the list goes on. And while many things are remaining the same, we continue to lean into change to better serve students and ultimately the community. We are both proud of the education that we have provided across our 57 years on this campus and well aware that it must evolve if students are to graduate with the knowledge and skills needed to be leaders and for the communities they will serve. As we've designed our new campus and begin to build it out for the next 3 months, we have listened carefully to what is important to all of you and are grateful for everyone's input. We have been intentional about how we will create community and an effective learning experience in the new space. Some of those most critical elements are as follows. We will be located in a vibrant, growing area of St. Paul that is actively attracting nonprofits, arts organizations, and people with missionally consistent worldviews as united. The space is very close to the Green Line, light rail, and student and faculty parking is secured and ample. Our space will be focused on both internal and external community engagement. At the geographic center of our space will be the chapel, intersection, meditation room, art exhibition, and dining areas. This space will be flexible for both traditional events like this and creative expressions. The hub of our new space will be largely managed by our newly created Department of Formation, Vocation, and Experience, led by Reverend Karen Hart. The intersection activities will be focused on a wide array of creative expression within all aspects of the arts, coordinated by Dr. Reverend Cindy Beth Johnson. Our dining areas will be dominated by large harvest tables that will encourage people to eat together and engage. Immediately adjacent to our space will be a green space area with patio and space for enjoying greenery in an urban environment. Our classrooms and many of the common areas, including small group huddle rooms, will be equipped with state-of-the-art video conferencing technology to better facilitate distance education students' experience inside and outside of the classroom. Our library and computer lab area will include good places for study and engagement. Faculty and student service areas will be easily accessible. Beyond our changes related to physical space, we have continued to invest in our academic programs, the most important aspect of which is our faculty. This year, we added a professor for arts and theology, Jennifer Freeman, who we'll hear from shortly. The addition of this new role reflects our deep commitment to the arts and their important role in theological education. Earlier this morning, the trustees met and directed the dean to begin a national search for a lead professor for social transformation. This role will add academic strength to our concentration and adjacent disciplines. It is our goal to have this position filled by the start of the next academic year in July of 2019. As previously mentioned, this past year, we added the position of Vice President for Formation, Vocation, and Experience and recruited Dr. Karen Hart, an experienced chaplain supervisor and faith leader, to help us ensure that students build the skills and experiences needed to be successful on their career paths. Beyond classroom experience, Karen and her team are focused on everything from stressors that lead to challenges completing degrees, to ensuring that students learn to be effective in public speaking, conflict resolution, social skills, self-care, and community engagement. As students, you are in seminary in a very exciting time. The path is largely uncharted and will require a blend of historic knowledge and understanding with a set of communication and interpersonal skills that are stronger than in previous times. When you graduate, your knowledge and wisdom will largely be available to people through many channels, and it will require special engagement and interpersonal skills as a leader to compete with the noise of the world. As faculty, you are teaching in a complex time. The content of your expertise is available in a multitude of places. Your effectiveness will be defined by your ability to translate that content into knowledge. Evolving pedagogical skills will be required both for in-residence and distance education students. As with other leaders, your value will be less in what you know and more in how effective you are in educating and transforming that knowledge into leadership skills. As executives and trustees, you are leading in a challenging time. Innovation, differentiation, efficiency, processes, and leadership vision will be more critical than pure historical experience alone. Ability to develop a strong team and build consensus will best predict success. The next several years will require new and innovative partnerships and alliances. At United, we are leaning into our tolerance of ambiguity. The future of our careers, institution, and in some cases faith communities will depend upon an entrepreneurial level of tolerance for risk and uncertainty and a passionate focus on why our understandings of the world matter. Thank you for being here and have a great academic year. Thanks be to God.
Welcome. It's been a productive summer and early fall in the academic department. Our academic council recently approved our proposed aligned curriculum, which, contingent upon our accreditor's approval, which we say all the time, will be announced to current students in the spring of 2019 and rolled out in the fall of 2019. This curriculum is coherent, vocationally aligned, and is organized around a core set of student learning outcomes agreed upon by the faculty. Foundational to the aligned curriculum is the United Core, a set of courses that includes categories of theological traditions, religious texts, spiritual and personal formation, cultural awareness, leadership practices, and United's unique curricular components, social transformation skills, and arts and theology. We're also in the process of aligning the leadership structure of our academic concentrations, shifting from a program director model of leadership, which involves dedicated administrators overseeing our academic concentrations, to a lead faculty model where full-time faculty ground our key programs, providing a dedicated content expert and classroom teacher as responsible for direct management of our pivotal academic programs. As Lou mentioned, one immediate result of this organizational change is that trustees have recently approved a national search for a full-time faculty person in social transformation who will serve also as the lead faculty for that concentration. In current faculty news, this fall we welcome Dr. Paul Capitz and Dr. Carolyn Pressler back from their sabbaticals, with Dr. Pressler transitioning to half-time status. We also welcome the return of Dr. Eleazar Fernandez to full-time residency in Minnesota. He's already been given an additional task as faculty moderator and is excelling quite nicely at his various jobs. We also want to celebrate the recent book publication of Dr. Ayo Yutunde called Object Relations, Buddhism and Relationality in Womanist Practical Theology with Palgrave Publishers. Ayo is on leave this fall semester doing her postdoctoral fellowship at Harvard University, which is a small liberal arts school in the Northeast. We are also, of course, excited today to introduce you officially to Dr. Jennifer Oz Freeman, our Assistant Professor of Arts and Theology on a 3-year non-tenure track contract. She's already brought her strong academic pedigree as well as her creative energy to this role and is hard at work securing grants, including a Wabash teaching grant, as well as major writing projects. Before coming to United, Jennifer was a visiting assistant professor at the University of St. Thomas, during the 2016 to 2018 years as a postdoctoral fellow at the Louisville Institute. She recently completed her doctoral work at Vanderbilt University. During the summer of 2016, she was a postdoc fellow at the Medieval Institute at the University of Notre Dame. Her research interests include images of divinity, iconoclasm, I can't even say it, material culture, gender studies, and the mutual influence of art and theology. We look forward to hearing from you, Jennifer, in just a little bit. Welcome to United. Thank you.
I think I should duly note to the president, to the faculty, and all gathered here that as an academic and a former teacher, to appear before a body such as this and an occasion such as this, I should be robed. And since I am not, I am, in a metaphorical way, naked. So I ask your indulgence. That's not a bad line. From Psalms 145, the 8th through the 17th verses, God is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. God is good to all, and her mercy is over all that she has made. God upholds all who are falling and raises up all who are bowed down. The eyes of all look to you, and you give them their food in due season. You open your hand, you satisfy the desire of every living thing. God is righteous in all her ways and kind in all her words. And I read to you a poem by Mary Oliver from her book, Thirst. I know a man of such mildness and kindness, it is truly to change my life. He does not preach, teach, but simply is. It is astonishing, for he is Christ's ambassador truly by rule and act, but more. He is kind, with the sort of kindness that shines out, but is resolute, not fooled. He has eaten the dark hours and could also, I think, soldier for God, riding out under the storm clouds against the world's pride and unkindness with both unassailable sweetness and consoling word.
President Zeidner, King Roberts, faculty colleagues, administrative staff, administrators of the Board of Trustees, new and returning students. Thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself to the community and to call us together for the new academic year. I am so thankful to have been invited into the United community at such a critical and exciting time in its history. It is also my distinct pleasure to thank my mentors and friends, Wilson Yates, Jan Cather Weaver, Cindy Beth Johnson, Robin Jensen, Kimberly Vredney, and Wayne Rosa, without whom I would not be here. And of course also to my husband Luke, he's the one in the bow tie and the purple shirt. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the Intersection, the Wilson Yates Center for Theology and the Arts. The Intersection is much more than a physical space for gathering and creating art.
It is an articulation of the way that the arts are infused throughout the curriculum and life of United. In our new campus, the intersection space is physically situated between the chapel and the classroom, a position that reflects the unique ability of the arts to bridge the spiritual and the scholarly. This seminary has played a legendary role in the development of art and theology as an academic field, and I am honored to be welcomed into this tradition and am excited to have a hand in forming the future of the arts at United. Here, students are trained to see theologically, to write theologically, to sing theologically, to move theologically. That is, to understand the arts in all forms as significant, even essential modes of theological and religious expression. Whether you are a chaplain in training or a working artist, at United you can encounter the arts as a historical source for theological meaning, a spiritual practice, a resource for ministry, and so on. The beginning of the academic year is often a time of anticipation, expectation, and optimism. There are new notebooks, rows of sharpened pencils, organized planners, and lots of coffee, speaking personally. As we prepare for the move to our new campus, it is also a time of self-reflection. Who are we as a community? Who and where do we want to be in the future? And how will we get there? By light rail. Today, I would like to share a part of the story that has led me to teach at United and offer you two metaphors for approaching this year with intention. Visual art was already an essential part of my identity and daily life when I first encountered Christianity in junior high school. And so for me, the two have always gone hand in hand. Art was how I made sense of the world. Even in that initial imageless Baptist community, I turned to art making to think theologically, whether it was through collaging on my bedroom walls or attempting to recreate Renaissance paintings of the crucifixion. It was the 90s. From there, I went on to study studio art, art history, and theater just down the road at Bethel University. There, my understanding of the arts and faith became further intertwined, and I came to understand theater as incarnational, communal, and ephemeral. After working in technical theater for a few years following graduation, I sought to deepen my own intellectual engagement with the historical relationship between theology and the arts, and soon found myself at Yale Divinity School taking a mix of theology and art history classes, and even a drawing class. Although I myself had never felt a call to ministry, during that time I realized that I could actually make a very concrete contribution to the work of future pastors, chaplains, and spiritual leaders by equipping them with visual literacy skills and historical knowledge of religious art and architecture, thus enabling them to navigate practical issues like building renovations or maybe a campus move. My interest in the mutual influence between art and theology, image and text, led me to doctoral studies finally at Vanderbilt, where I was a fellow in the Theology and Practice program, which aims to make meaningful connections between academia and practiced or lived theology. And that's part of what I hope to bring here to United. In the spring before I began my PhD, on Pentecost to be precise, my husband and I were received into the Eastern Orthodox Church. There we go. It is hereby, and I should say, the whole story is rather long and serpentine, but suffice it to say that I had found my spiritual home in the church's embodied sensory liturgy and its visual theology as expressed in icons. So it is here, by way of introduction to my faith tradition, I would like to offer you two metaphors with which to frame the new academic year: pilgrimage and elevation. Holy Trinity Orthodox Church is nestled in the Payne-Phelan neighborhood of St. Paul, where it's been since 1916. In the narthex, or entry of the church, visitors are met with a mural of the triumphal entry of Christ into Jerusalem. Thus, the ascent up the stairs, or the elevator, becomes an image of going up to Jerusalem, a concept of pilgrimage that has a long history in both Judaism and Christianity. For example, in the Middle Ages, when physical pilgrimage to Jerusalem was not possible, the faithful could participate in local pilgrimages, whether to regional shrines or through small-scale architectural models, or copies, really, kind of architectural quotes, or even imaginatively through pilgrimage itineraries such as this one. Similarly, visual representations of Christ's entry into Jerusalem, like the one in my church, remind us that every approach to the altar can itself be a pilgrimage to the holy. In other words, much like a bodily pilgrimage to a faraway destination, liturgical movements can transport us spiritually and emotionally. A small gesture can carry centuries of theological meaning. And so I encourage you, if only for the next few minutes, to consider the pilgrimage moments in your own life. Perhaps your studies at United have required you to move hundreds or thousands of miles. For those in your final year, I imagine that your time in coursework, internships, or CPE has been a spiritual and intellectual journey, both challenging and rewarding. Perhaps in the process of coming to seminary, you have risked or lost something. Wherever you are, you have come to this place, this community, with a purpose, whether it is discernible yet or not. And of course, as a community, we will soon be making our own kind of pilgrimage to the 280 University neighborhood near Prospect Park. It's a short distance, only about 7 miles. Medieval pilgrimage could easily walk that in an afternoon. But it will be a meaningful journey, and it presents us with the opportunity for transformation. About 2 weeks ago, on September 14th, Eastern Orthodox Christians celebrated the Feast of the Elevation of the Cross, which is one of only 2 feasts that is also a fasting day in the Orthodox tradition. This feast commemorates the discovery of the true cross in Jerusalem in the year 326 by Emperor Constantine's mother, Helen. The cross was verified through 2 miracles. A dead man was resurrected upon touching it, and a sick woman was healed by its shadow. According to tradition, the Patriarch Macarius elevated the cross so that everyone present could see it, and they responded, "Lord, have mercy," and prostrated themselves. These anecdotes are also reminiscent of the biblical story in Numbers chapter 21, in which God commands Moses to raise up a bronze serpent in the desert so that those who had been bitten by poisonous snakes might be healed. In the Gospel of John, Jesus compares himself to that image so that, quote, "whoever believes in him may have eternal life." On the day of the feast, a full divine liturgy is celebrated, and at one point in the service, the priest raises the crucifix and blesses the 4 directions, east, west, north, and south, as the choir and congregation sing, "Lord, have mercy," 40 times for each direction. After which, the hymn of veneration is sung 3 times. "Before thy cross we bow down and worship, O Master, and thy holy resurrection we magnify." Each time, the faithful cross themselves and make a full prostration, forehead to floor. For the rest of the service and the following 7 days, the crucifix is displayed in the center of the church, adorned with fragrant flowers and basil, because, according to tradition, a basil plant was growing on the site where the cross was discovered. When the faithful venerate the cross at the beginning and end of the liturgy by crossing themselves, bowing, and kissing the wood of the crucifix, the effect is immersive, like nestling your face into the soft petals of a sweet-smelling bouquet. This year, I was especially struck by the juxtaposition of the physical elevation of the cross of Christ with the humbling of ourselves in prostration. Much like John the Baptist's comment, "I must decrease that he may increase," raising something or someone other than yourself up implies or even requires your own diminishment. As we embark on this journey that is the 2018-19 academic school year, with all of its opportunities and challenges, let us consider what we want to elevate. Which communities, which conflicts? As we consider our various identities, individual, spiritual, communal, and beyond, we might do well to acknowledge and assess our priorities, questions, and concerns. What or who should you honor? Who can you lift up? What gifts do you have to offer to others? And in so doing, pay attention to your own posture. What does it mean to serve a community or a cause? During the coming months, there will be times that it will be appropriate to elevate something with fists in the air. On other occasions, you may find yourself forehead to floor in grief or in awe or awfulness. You may be alone or shoulder to shoulder with friends or with strangers. In the Middle Ages, a pilgrim's journey was often long, dangerous, smelly, and depended on the kindness of strangers. During this academic year of challenge and change, may we turn to each other with humility and kindness, and as we elevate what is holy, may we too be transformed. Thank you.
to be fully present, to offer all of our gifts, to show up, not necessarily to shrink away, but to risk in the midst of ambiguity, in the midst of solidarity, in the midst of community. Let us be known in these ways. Let us pray.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round attendees five. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round and tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Continue in prayer with each other. I invite you, as we pray for different parts of our community, and also where we're being sent out. The traditional, I don't know if you all, who might have heard the party tradition or not, to raise holy hands, to confer power and blessing that you have upon someone else, to receive that power in the same way. So when I ask you to confer in a particular direction, please raise your hand or lift them up to receive and bless. As we continue in prayer, I invite you also to pray with eyes open and closed. Gracious God, you call us to a journey, a pilgrimage, that is not of our doing, not that my will be done, but that thy will be manifest in every single step, in every single hand, in every single life that we travel and connect to. We ask for this power to open our hearts and our minds. As we lift up our administration and our leadership, our board of trustees, conferring our power upon them, may they be guided in love. May they know and manifest who sits in these classes, who receives these gifts after our students graduate, who receives our professors in their power of knowledge, of mastery,
Humble these people. I'll let that sit for a little bit. Humble these people. For they've humbled themselves even more so, but not simply as masters of the subject area, but they have done this as a labor of love. This is their life's calling. They have given themselves to be honed. It is not simply words or knowledge that is gained, but a life that is lived, that they manifest in every single class they teach, every single conversation that they have, every single word that they read, every single word that they write that course through them. May it not be simply their words, but you, who is wholly manifest through everything that they offer you. Bless them in this time, and particularly for Jenna. For her pilgrimage and how she has been led here, may we be blessed to receive her wisdom, her experience, her knowledge, and more so, how the serpentine path has led specifically to here, 767 road uses. Whenever we may show up, may she be guided continually as she has followed this way. Be breathed through, be loved and manifest in this way of what beauty is, how it opens us up, and what these symbols and our symbolic presence with each other means. Continue to bless her. For our students and our staff, may they know that it is not, I'm going to get hate mail. May they know that it is not the grade that gives them worth, but it is the path that has led them. May they know it is not what they accomplish that makes them great, but simply power made perfect in weakness, that they may know that they are come to be called in community and offer the richness and the texture of their gifts to integrate this with knowledge and masters and mentors. That this is the great work they have been called into, the humbling work they have been called into. May they breathe this in, so it is not a grade or a degree, but they may be enriched and deepened in whatever their path may become. That they now travel, they sojourn with us here, but they take us along with them. May they know that they are blessed, they are chosen. That they follow a great path and will this come, and something still awaits them. Even after this. Bless them in this way. Let them know this privilege. For our world, it is time now. It is time that we show up. It is time that we make ourselves known. That we are an angry people, and we are a loving people. That we come to be prophetic, we come to be loving in all we can. May we know that this is the great call for each one of us. May we all who know us know who has called us. Let us sing. It is time now. It is time now that we cry. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We will sing our way out after the benediction. This is the community that we're called to, those who are both online, those who are here in class and with us in spirit who cannot be with us today. This is a great work and a hard journey. And you go out into the world in peace, knowing that you are whole, even though you might not feel it, even though you might not have to fool yourself, you might have to fool yourself into believing this. May you go out into the world with justice and compassion in your heart. Give voice to the silent, the strength to the weak. Receive that gift when you are silenced, when you have